Good morning. I actually just got back from Hokkaido, where I had the opportunity to do a sort of advising job to help refine and polish a tour related to the indigenous Ainu peoples. As I hike today, I'd like to share some of what I've learned about the Ainu. Let me just say first, I'm not a scholar, so all the information is just what I heard from the guides and the Ainu who was running a sort of Ainu facility museum in Asahikawa, which is smack dab in the center of Hokkaido. All right, onward bound.
This is the Mitsuishi Lodge. There's a wood-burning stove here, though you'd have to bring your own wood. Little pond, bathrooms. I've spent a few nights here, and if you have the opportunity, I recommend you to.
About 2 hours into the hike, we've reached one of my favorite spots. This area doesn't actually have a name, but it's this expansive volcanic plain that is filled with rocks, and people are making little cairns and stacking them everywhere. The Ainu are the indigenous people of Hokkaido. I just want to mention a few interesting things that I learned. One of them is that the Ainu regard bears as gods. In Ainu religious belief, there are 3 worlds: the realm of the gods, or the Kamui Moshiro, the realm of the humans, which is the Ainu Moshiro. The Ainu is human, basically, in their language. And there's also a hell realm. Some of the gods are these bears, and in the god realm, the bears have a human-like form. But when the gods descend into the human realm, they wear the shape of bears. Of course, these bears are not the black bears around here, but Japanese brown bears, higuma, basically grizzlies. So if the bears are gods, then why do they hunt and eat them? Through killing the bears, they're of course not killing the gods. I don't think gods can be killed. They're sending them back to the god realm and receiving their blessing through the meat, bones, everything. They hunted the bears in March when they were still groggy, fresh out of hibernation, and thus right after they had given birth. After killing a mother bear, they would take the cubs back and raise the cubs as pets, as guests, as divinities amongst them. Famously, these Ainu villages would have baby bears. They would raise them for 2 years. And then after 2 years, they have a huge ceremony of sorts in which they would send the bears back to the divine realm, thus kill and eat them. Okay, I've got a long way to cover today, and so I'll talk to you from further along the trail.
Climbing up to this active volcano known as Kurokura, the Black Storehouse. There's almost always volcanic gases pouring out of the cliffside from this one. We'll see.
This is Mount Kurokura, which is an active volcano, and as you can see, there's lots of volcanic gases just spewing right out of it. It's actually one of my favorite spots. You have a view of the great hell valley below, Ojigokudani, as it's called in Japanese. And not today, but on clear days, we'd have a nice view of the demon's castle.
One thing you see a lot of in the mountains in Japan is bamboo grass, in Japanese sasa. So this right here, this is bamboo grass. This is sasa. And the Ainu used this sasa to make their houses. They just had wooden frames, and they would pick this early in the year, hang it out to dry it, and use it for insulation. It was warmer than just using wood planks.
This flower is sankayo. As you can see right here, it's white and it becomes translucent like this when it's wet. I love the way the clouds just descend over the ridges here. I'm abbreviating my trip across the Demon's Castle because I've shown you so many times before this gorgeous area. So let me just show you a few views while I tell you more stories. Each Ainu community, I was told, has a sort of holy mountain, or at least hill. It's not necessarily a huge mountain, depending on where the village is. And that hill is called, literally, the hill that we pray to, or the mountain that we pray to. The one for the Asahikawa community is something that modern-day Japanese called Arashiyama, not to be confused with the one in Kyoto. And this place has an area at the base where they would bury all of their blades and tools. One other interesting belief in their culture is that all items and tools that you used had their own souls. And so they were respected, given thanks, and instead of just being thrown away or discarded when they were broken or could no longer be used, they would have a ritual for them, honor them, and then bury them in a place of honor, like a conscious being. As you can probably guess, just like the indigenous peoples in just about any other country that you can think of, there is a dark history, basically. They were nearly wiped out by the Japanese. There's no way around it. Just like the Native Americans, the First Nations people, the Aborigines, a lot of them were put into sort of re-education camps. Some were put into forced labor. The Ainu language now is nearly gone. There are few fluent speakers now, few native speakers, though it is taught in some institutions and universities, and I think even in some community centers in Hokkaido. But it's disappearing, and people are working hard at preserving it, but it's a battle. For a long time, wow, there's a lot of bugs around here, sorry. It was considered negative to be Ainu, and so people who were maybe descendants, people who had intermarried with Japanese who had immigrated to Hokkaido and who could pass for normal Japanese would do that. And they would hide their ancestry to the point of not even telling their children. So I talked to some people who even said they didn't even find out they were Ainu until they did some research into their family history. Or they would have one grandmother who they put the pieces together and realized she must have been Ainu or half Ainu. But it really wasn't something that you spoke of, even to your children. Thankfully, this stigma and the racism against them is, I think, largely gone now. The government is trying to preserve their culture now. They're putting big statues and carvings of the Ainu at Sapporo Station and other places in Hokkaido. And so they're not treated as a lower, lesser group now, but they were for a very long time. And so there is still some resistance, and some people still don't want to come out and talk about their heritage because they've had a rough time. I only know the tiniest bit on the surface, but even through this little trip where I was learning just some tidbits of the history and the culture, I can see how deep it is and how much there is to learn. And I will find some good books, read more about it, and hopefully go back again and learn more from other people and hear some firsthand accounts. And if possible, I'll take you there with me.
See that snake? I do not know what kind it is. Little guy. I don't think that's a mamushi. Mamushi have more triangular heads. I think it's just a grass snake. I'm not getting close to it though. See ya. Tenth time at the summit for 2022, and there's a fair amount of bugs today as well. Looks like today's a ladybug day. Lots and lots of ladybugs. The ridiculous number of bugs on the summit has led me to just run down off there, so we're not lingering on the summit, just tagged it.
Made it back safely to my car. If you're interested in numbers and things, it was 9 hours. And during that 9 hours, I covered 22.4 kilometers and went up. I ascended a total of 1,635 meters with a total descent of just over 2,000 meters. I used a different starting and ending point, and the ending point was lower than the starting point. That's why I descended 400 meters more than I ascended. Duh, right. So if you want, there's a link in the description that has the GPX data. It leads to a link that shows the route and everything like that in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the trails.